The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Great Match Generator.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to Great Match Generator, where we generate matches and see what makes them great. I am your host, DJ D. Kooks here, and we have the whole gang here. Finally. We have Matt, we have Mike, we have Greg. How is everyone doing? Penn State finally got some wins under their belt.
Got some momentum going into next year. And the defense, as I said, after the Ohio State game, I made this known on social media, they were going to have better days. And clearly we saw Exhibits A and B in the last 2 weeks. I expect Exhibit C tomorrow. I know it's a noon kick now for Senior Day. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from the defense. And Kevion Lee, I'm liking this big dude. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this guy. This dude can really run the ball. He's got some physicality to him. Work on the speed a little bit, and I think he might have something special with another running back in Kevion Lee. Look out for him next year. Parker Washington too at receiver.
Greg, your reaction to that?
Yeah, I'm really hoping for a third win. And college football is so wacky this year, we might actually go to a bowl.
Yeah, because they waived the 6-win requirement for this year. That's right.
Oh my God. They waived the 6-win requirement, so Penn State might get the money after all.
Yeah, a 3-5 team might go to a bowl game.
Yep. Now, we'll need some things to probably happen to make that a thing. But, yeah, there's a real good – I mean, Penn State's being such a national draw. If a team's going to take if a bowl game down to the Pinstripe Bowl can't take it because they canceled already, but if Penn State's available, I think they would take them. If Penn State gets the 4 and 5, I think they would absolutely take them.
Right. So, Yeah, Matt doesn't have anything to say about college football, but Notre Dame is number 2 in the country, baby.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ikuto, how you feeling about running it back with Clemson? You guys got to run it back.
I feel
with Clemson
good.
this time and turn it around.
I feel good. One player doesn't change everything.
Okay.
One player does not change the world. We tore up that defense once, we'll tear it up again.
All right.
And that Notre Dame defense has gotten better after that Clemson game too. So
that has been the most stable part of your team. You certainly have your offense has been okay. It feels like to me, but your defense is really getting it right since the Clemson game. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. I have almost no takes on college football this season. I haven't had it in me to follow as much, even though I'm in a college town. But I do enjoy college football, so it's nice to hear people enjoying it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have 4 matches on the docket today. We have the reveal for next week, and we have lots more to get to today. Enough about college or talk about college football. We have Ricky Steamboat versus Tully Blanchard. I actually watched it I watched these matches in year order, which is rare for me. Because the matches I most wanted to see were the two older matches. So Ricky Steamboat versus Tully Blanchard from Starrcade 84. Then we have Toshiaki Kawada versus Shinya Hashimoto from All Japan Pro Wrestling, February 2nd, 2004. Then we have Chris Hero versus Ikuto Hidaka from Evolve Wrestling, number 2. 3/14/2010, and then Roosh versus Negro Casas. I believe that was the anniversary show.
Yeah, I think so.
That was the big hair versus hair match.
Mm-hmm.
2 out of 3 falls. 8/1/2014. So we always start in year order. So let's start off with good old Ricky Steamboat versus Tully Blanchard. And how many of you guys watched the promos beforehand?
I did not.
I didn't either.
I did.
I thought the promos told a pretty good story of like what this match sort of told. So it gave you the context, even though the commentators, Tully and Cottle, do an excellent job of giving you context because it's Gordon Soley and Bob Cottle.
With regard to the promos beforehand, I actually watched a bunch of promos, not just these two. And as you would expect, Ric Flair and Dusty, incredible promos.
Yep.
Then you watch Tully and Ricky, and those guys just kind of need to stick to in-ring work. Because they were so boring. They were so boring.
You got 2 dudes who could talk you into a building and 2 dudes that can talk you out of one. I think that's the way I would describe it. Obviously, Blanchard and Steamboat are excellent wrestlers, yes, but yeah, on the microphone, I never really saw either of them as 2 dudes that can talk you into a building.
Obviously, this match, Steamboat was coming in with a rib injury. So Steamboat averts the early attacks on the ribs, and then Tully keeps the pressure on. But Steamboat keeps valiantly fighting. Steamboat's like that snippy puppy that keeps fighting, no matter what Blanchard does. I felt this match felt like a struggle the entire time. And that's very important to me. It just felt like 2 men struggling to get positioning, to get a move in, to get anything on. I felt like that was really important to me. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so at first I didn't watch the promos, but I'm a little surprised to hear people say that Tully and Steamboat were bad promos. I think they're kind of generally considered decent promos, particularly Tully. But again, I didn't watch these, so maybe they're not particularly good representations. And I also kind of have Tully's recent AEW work in my head, and I think he's been quite good on the mic there.
Yeah.
That's true.
But for the match, I really enjoyed this. I watched it sort of first thing yesterday morning, and it was, I don't know, it was just a really nice, like, have my morning coffee to match. Great struggle. I think you're right. Really cerebral performance from both men, particularly Tully. Working this entire match around this rib injury was just so nuanced and simple. You could kind of imagine that if these two guys were like outside of a bar and one of them knew the other one's rib was hurt, that some of this match would look exactly like they were fighting outside of that bar. I thought that the execution was really well paced, and the thing that really jumped out to me is I think Tully at the end of this is pulling an old Lawler trick, or a little trick that I often associate with Lawler, where I'm not sure he actually had anything in his hand, but he reaches into his trunks and pretends that he does, such that like we buy that there's something in his hands.
Right.
Lawler would do that with the chain a lot, or the quote unquote chain, I should say. And so, yeah, I thought, like, yeah, just little touches like that maybe I'm a little nostalgic for them. I mean, I was born in '84, so I didn't watch this match live, obviously, but it's the kind of wrestling I kind of grew up with the earliest stages of watching. So I really enjoyed it. Two world-class workers. Steamboat is, to me, an absolute all-timer, and Tully is one of the most underrated in-ring performers on the whole. And I think this is a great match that shows why. I love the kind of blood at the end, and Steamboat just like straight up spitting in Tully's face. He's so mad. Was like almost jarring because Steamboat's such a nice guy on the whole. And his whole career as a face.
It almost made Tully look like a baby face, but then you realize Tully's such a...
Yeah, the idea that they could in a moment make me feel even slightly sorry for Tully Blanchard is pretty impressive. But then immediately, like, I realized, oh yeah, no, Tully's a really bad person. And
Tully's the heel here.
Yeah, and Steve.
Right, Tully is the heel.
Yeah, and Steamboat's the everything.
I even wrote that down. I was like, even though Tully played a good heel, both men felt like baby faces at times.
Yeah, they felt like two people who were in a fight, and in a fight, it's everything goes sometimes. And I feel like they really felt like they wanted to hurt each other and needed to hurt each other to survive, and they accomplished it in a relatively small amount of time, and it was very, very impressive.
Fire and vitriol for each other.
That's really good.
Fire and vitriol. Oh yeah, I did write down 4 3/4 for this match. So 4 3/4.
I think you led right into the thing I wish this was even more so. D. Cooks knows I love in-ring psychology. I love like the psychology of a match. I love the story of a match. And absolutely focusing on the ribs, I thought was a really good touch. And I think that's to know Steamboat came into this match not really pointing it out with bandages around the ribs, but with a known injury, and Blanchard wasting no time in attacking when he could. I love that. I do wish the match were longer. I certainly do wish it were a little bit longer, because I guess probably because I just enjoyed the story so much, and enjoyed how these two guys worked, and their chemistry was evident pretty much from the jump, where it starts as a fight. They're throwing strikes right out the gate, and then we get into the story of the ribs, and then we get into the comeback of Steamboat, and then we get into the Steamboat kind of going heel for a cameo appearance. So I think it all flowed so well.
Yeah, we could have shaved 2 minutes off of Wahoo versus Billy Graham.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
nothing against them, but
so Matt, going back to the promos real quick, I think it was just watching them next to Dusty and Flair.
Sure, yeah,
they were going to be outclassed.
Yeah,
Of course,
and
yeah.
it was all in the tone of voice because like they seemed very robotic, like they were reaching for what they wanted to say, or like Flair and Dusty were just like fluid, like they were having a conversation almost. Anyway, it was interesting because this was on the network and it's billed there as WCW, but then all the branding around the ring was NWA and Jim Crockett.
Right.
This was before the merger.
Yeah. But it still gave me like almost WWF vibes because I think this is the first early 80s match where they had big entrances. This is, I think, the first one we've seen where the no run rule was going on. That was weird to me until I saw it in action. But yeah, the wrestling was really good. I did like y'all said, the going after the ribs, and it did look, yeah, I think more than most of the American stuff we've looked at, this looked like a fight. It was like a street fight. And I really liked how Tully in AEW right now, his whole thing with Shawn Spears is he gives him the metal slug. And how did he win? Something in his hand. Maybe it was a metal slug.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I think the other thing that I really, really liked about this match, and it's the thing I like about all Steamboat matches, is he sells for the cheap seats in a way. But he combines that here with some really nuanced selling of his ribs, right? So he's stalling before he throws punches because his ribs hurt, right? Like, so
he's got to gather himself. He's got to gather his breath, right?
Yeah,
right.
Like little stuff like that. And sometimes I think modern wrestling gets unfairly maligned for things like psychology and selling, but you rarely see this this sort of high
No, you don't see this level
thing. And it's a masterclass, right? And I don't think you need to be this nuanced to have great matches, but it certainly helps a lot in terms of matches that are going to hold up over time, and that's why I think Steamboat does hold up really well.
Yeah. Now to a match that holds up for entirely different reasons. Toshiaki Kawada versus Shinya Hashimoto. All Japan Pro Wrestling, February 22nd, 2004. Defense, Mike, what do you like to say about defense?
Defense would be an insult to both of the wrestlers involved in the match.
Yes. You know me. This was my type of match.
Big dudes throwing hands, throwing bombs. The physicality involved here, even the tech stuff, even like the submissions involved in this match had some more oomph to it, if you will.
Yeah.
And the fans sure love Kawada. They popped for stretching.
Yeah, Kawada, they wanted him to beat this invader and show this formerly New Japan, now 0-1 guy, and get him the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, really quickly, coming back up, did everybody else give their star rating for the last match? And I
4 3/4.
I got 4.5 for the Steamboat Blanchard. I go 4.5.
4 3/4.
I went 4 1/4, but it like I'm almost talking myself into 4.5 as we were talking over it, but yeah, right in that range.
4 3/4.
And I'm going just 4 only because that 80s style really isn't my style, but I still liked it.
Sure.
Okay.
And my thing about 4 3/4 is that was a masterclass.
Yeah, I think to Mike's point, if it had been like 5 minutes longer and the main event, I probably would be seriously considering this as a 4 3, maybe even higher depending on how they use that 5 minutes. Because I mean, they were building definitely in that direction.
And I get why the Flair and Dusty went last. I get it. They're the two biggest draws. And two of the biggest draws in wrestling at that time. And
in hindsight, that match only went 12 minutes.
Yeah, like I get why that went last, but yeah, this felt like the best match on the card. I'm not sure it was that close.
It's Steamboat playing Bridesmaid always, right? Like it's WrestleMania 3, Savage.
It's a classic, but
right.
Hogan and Andre.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of bridesmaids, we talk about two bridesmaids here, Kawada and Hashimoto. Kawada always a bridesmaid to Misawa and Kobashi, and then Hashimoto always a bridesmaid to Muda and Choto. We never really talk about that. And even though it's like we're talking about great wrestlers here, and we're talking about these great wrestlers, and Kawada is considered one of the all-time greats, and Hashimoto is considered one of the all-time greats, but they're often looking up to Muto. Hashimoto's often looking up to Muto and Chono in like the pecking order of New Japan in the 90s, and in the 90s in All Japan, Kawada was always looking up towards Misawa and Kobashi.
Fair comparisons.
Matt, you were speechless by that.
Yeah, no, well, I'm kind of thinking about it. I think I think Chono and Muto are probably the bigger stars in the 90s. I mean, my knowledge of 90s New Japan is pretty limited, but I also think that there was a lot of buzz and dream sort of fantasy booking about Hashimoto and the Pillars because of the style, right? Because he's this big bruising striker, and I think it was the most natural fit to think of Hashimoto against the Pillars. And that's why when some of the tag matches and then this little kind of invasion run with Hashimoto happens in All Japan, that's why there's a lot of hype around. That's why people are kind of white hot for it when it does go down. Because I think you're right. He was sort of probably not the one in most people's eyes, much like Misawa was the one in All Japan in the 90s for so long, and then Kawada.
And then in Noah, it was Kobashi that was the one.
Yeah, for sure. But there was just so much energy around this idea of Hashimoto versus any of the Pillars, and even so that's why I think there's so much the fans are just losing it for this match.
Yeah, and this match was freaking awesome. This is just kick, punch, submissions, suplexes, head drops. Mm-hmm. I'm in love. I'm in love.
Yeah. It was awesome for its simplicity. It absolutely was. It kept it short, sweet, and to the point, and everything made sense. And the crowd. And this is what I love about Japan wrestling crowds in general. They know they build the arc just as much as the wrestlers do. Where it kind of you start to get their feet wet, then the crowd kind of gets his feet wet, kind of gets into the match, and then as it builds and it builds and it builds, the crowd builds and builds and builds, and then they get up for everything. As we get to the end, it's like whoa, it's like a tidal wave is coming. And I love that about the Japan crowds in general, but especially here in this particular match.
I wrote here that the fans popped for a suplex reversal.
Yeah.
So unlike you guys, I really know virtually nothing about Japanese wrestling. I'm really learning through this podcast. But excuse me. We've seen Kawada before, and it's again really ironic comparing this stuff to the modern product, because right now, Kenny Omega is doing this whole belt collector gimmick, and what does Kawada do? Come out with 3 belts stripping off of him.
But that was All Japan's belt at the time.
Yeah.
And still to this day, it's the Triple Crown. It's the combination of the 3 belts.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, I didn't really know what these belts were, but just even the way he was carrying them, you could tell they meant something, and he meant something, because here's this guy with 3 belts. The striking, like you said, was ridiculous, but that's always to be expected out of Japanese wrestling. I really liked the selling of Kawada's leg. Even after he would do an offensive move, he'd be like, "Oh man, that hurt me more than you."
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought this was the performance of Hashimoto, not of Hashimoto's career, but because there are a couple other matches that come to mind when you think of Hashimoto, but for this was like the last big match before Hashimoto died. Because he would die like a little less than a year later. And this was fantastic. This was just fantastic.
Right. So, like a couple quick things about this match for me. It's a match that like is like feels kind of bittersweet watching it, because even watching it in 2004, I really wish it happened in like 1998.
You wish it happened in 1998 because
it's a genuinely great match on its own, and so it's not a knock on the match at all. I think this is a match that I use this term a lot when I think of certain kinds of matches. I think they will their way to a great match. I don't think they had particularly good chemistry, but you don't need particularly good chemistry to beat the hell out of each other. No. And that's kind of what they rely on. I mean, I think there are places in the match where, if you're watching with a really careful, like you're really closely watching and maybe nitpicking a little too much, like I often will do if I'm, preparing for something like this or rating or something, there are places where they're just not quite on the same page, where, there's a kind of stark contrast to how Kawada would work with Misawa, for example. But that's all aside, right? These guys didn't have a ton of time working together that I know of. And they've had hard careers, right? It's, they're in the latter stages of their careers, and they're not just careers, they're tough roads that they've walked. And I think they did a really great job putting together, as you all said, a really simple story that played to both men's strengths. We end up getting the kind of screwy interpromotional finish with the towel being thrown in. It doesn't feel unsatisfying. But you still kind of, part of you wishes that there wasn't any of the politics involved, that you could sort of have something a little bit different, or at least for myself.
Yeah, it came off anticlimactic.
Yeah,
I even wrote that. It came off anticlimactic.
Yeah, and so, but the match is, again, really good, and both men are playing to their strengths. Kawada's ear gets busted open partway through this match. He is a historically great seller, particularly of leg work. There's some kind of all-time classics that I would put in my top 50 that really are carried partially on Kawada's leg selling.
6'5",
right. So he's using the things that he does really well in this match. And I just looked this up because I didn't know Hashimoto actually had the Triple Crown before Kawada and had to vacate it for a dislocated shoulder. And so I'm thinking this is like the match to settle the score, right? Like, I vacated my title, you have the title, I'm going to come back and claim my belt, blah, blah, blah. So that adds a little bit of layer to like what's happening here. You see Hashimoto's silent charisma. You just look at him and you're like, oh man, somebody's going to get hurt. And he carries himself as a champion even without the belt. Kawada has a very similar, like, menacing presence, even though he's a relatively small guy compared to a lot of his peers. And so they do a lot of work with their presence here. They do a lot of work with their reputation. And I think that they carry that into the match in really smart ways. And that's what happens when you put two all-time greats in the ring with one another. They're going to one way or another find their way to at least a good, if not great, match.
You know me. I adored this thing. I did 4 3/4. I was like, I know about the inconsistencies. I know, but this is like comfort food. And I'm like, I'll be generous to this.
Sure.
In my head, it's 4.5, but in my heart, it's 4 3/4, and I go with my heart when I rate wrestling matches.
Fair.
I'd probably go 4 1/4. I wish it were the ending were a little bit less political. I agree. I'll buy that. But all in all, I did enjoy. I do enjoy some physicality when it comes to big dudes punching each other. I'm all for it.
I'm the same. I'm a ghoul. I like people hitting each other hard and busting each other up, and so I gave it. It's funny. 3 of the matches actually get the sort of exact same rating from me. The somewhere between 4.5 and 4.25, and that's where this lands. Probably closer to 4.5 all told. This is another one I watched twice and liked a little bit more on the second go. And it's just, again, what's there not to love about these two dudes beating each other up?
Yeah, what's not to love? Speaking of dudes beating each other up, Greg?
And then I'm going 3.5, but again, it's mostly because it's me. I'm the outlier on the podcast here. I don't know anything about this Japanese wrestling. And not knowing the stories really just takes away from it a little bit for me. But I still do like the matches themselves. It's just hard to really get into it if I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Chris Hero versus Ikuto Hidaka. Hidaka. Is that how I say it?
I think that's it.
Who are you texting? My therapist. You text with your therapist? Text, video chat, call. Yep. That sounds too easy. How did you find her? I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable. I wonder if I should try it. It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save. BetterHelp.com/save. Got it.
Progressive is proud to honor our veterans by donating vehicles to move their lives forward, especially in times of need. This year celebrates 8 years and more than 750 vehicles donated. Learn more about their Keys to Progress program and plans for 2020 at keystoprogress.com.
I think it was Hidaka.
Yes. From Evolve Wrestling number 2. Evolve is that old. My God.
Time has flown,
Now Evolve no longer exists.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that old?
Was that old? Oh, goodness. This was in 2010.
I think with this match, for me, it was styles make fights. It was the physicality and the striking of Hero and Hidaka's technical skill. And how Hidaka kind of exploit the speed advantage and use the technical skill to chop down the tree of a slimmer Chris Hero than what we're probably used to seeing in the latter part of the last decade and in 2020 now. So I think that's the thing that I took away from this the most of Hidaka's abilities and how successful he was in chopping down the big tree that was Chris Hero. And going after the legs repeatedly until he can finally chop him down. I think that's what made this match kind of stick. Again, stuck to that psychology that I enjoy in wrestling so much.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I thought the work was very interesting. I thought the finishing stretch was pretty interesting too. I thought all the selling mattered, the little things mattered, and I just felt the grappling was interesting, which is hard to do.
Greg, do you want to go on this one? I can be wordy, and I think I have the most to say about this match.
That's fair. This is probably my probably second favorite, actually. I like the last one we're going to talk about, but just because, again, I'm familiar with these guys, it was nice to see Cassius Ono and Cesaro in their prior forms here. Oh, what were they? The Heroes of Wrestling or something like that?
Was it Heroes or Kings of Wrestling?
Kings of Wrestling.
Kings of Wrestling. Okay, yeah. But no, they were great in this. I've seen a lot of Heroes work as Cassius Ono. Because NXT, I know I'm the weird one. I like NXT UK. He was over there recently.
I don't mind UK. I'm okay with UK.
Yeah, it's fun. And he was over there playing this character that was basically an American trying to out-British wrestle the British wrestler.
Where he didn't strikes anymore. It was all technical skill.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of that in this match with his submission skills here on display. You definitely see where he got that kind of reputation. We saw on the last podcast, there was a Japanese match where I commented that they were using painful holds to like secure the arms, and they were doing that again here, and I love that realism. I really noticed. I never noticed before how big Chris Hero is, and I didn't know if he's a big guy or Hidaka's really small. But
Both.
It's both.
Yeah, the size difference was so evident in this match.
Yeah, and I really like how Hidaka was working over the leg to kind of counteract that size, and the way he was kind of taking things to the ground and going for the submission game because he knew he was never going to compete with the striking ability of Hero. So all that played into the psychology, and I loved that. So, this was a really great match for me. But I will say, again, the ending was a little weak, kind of like the last match, just because I thought the kicks looked a little weak. And a high kick to the face won the match. I was hoping for a little bit more oomph to my ending, but that's nitpicking.
Sure. So this match like sort of encompasses a lot of things that I really love about independent wrestling in the 2000s to early 2010s, and also things that kind of bug me about it. And the first thing is that I love golden era independent wrestling. So you're like, you're 2002 on,
Right.
because there's so much like experimenting, right? There's so much, it's like a punk rock scene. It's like, there's lots of people who are really trying to find themselves as workers, and they're obviously so talented. And so I think if you go back and watch like the early Danielson stuff or Daniel Bryan stuff in Ring of Honor and so on, you'll see that, right? They're doing shoot stuff, they're working strong style, they're Kings Road stuff. There's so many elements of different kinds of wrestling that are fascinating, and to see them come together is really cool. Chris Hero to me in 2000, what year is this?
2010.
2010. So Chris Hero in 2010. This is right before he goes to NXT, or right before he signs with the WWE for his first run, I think, is to me kind of the last bastion of that. He's pulling from the British grappling style a lot, which not a lot of other people were doing, and he's really implementing it in cool ways. But he's also just worked with Misawa. They talked about that in the match itself. So again, I think Hero is blending a lot of wrestling together in this very unique package that becomes Chris Hero. And he's really a pretty polished performer at this time. He's a put together wrestler. And Hidaka is coming. This is also the time where like lots of independents are bringing in Japanese stars, particularly. And
I remember it was like every weekend.
Yeah,
some Japanese star was like coming in.
Yeah, these kind of dream matches. And Evolve is kind of a offshoot of Ring of Honor. Gabe Sapolsky used to book for Ring of Honor. Now he owned Evolve. He was
USA.
Dragon Gate USA. So it's a revival of like matches for matches' sake, right? Like wins and losses are gonna count, and we're gonna really focus on the wrestling, right? That was kind of early Evolve work. So that to me, that context is kind of important here, because that context also creates the thing that annoys me about this time period, when you have this match that like, I don't know why they're fighting each other other than to fight each other, which is fine. Like, I'm okay with that. I love great matches for great matches' sake. I'm okay with that. But it also makes it so those matches often have kind of a ceiling to them for me. And then this match, each time I've watched it, has like kind of talked me into loving it by the end. It starts with this very like great grappling. Everything's put together nicely. Everything's tight. Everything works well. And by the end, I get that they've become really frustrated with each other and a little bit upset with one another for the targeted limb work that goes on in the match, and all this other stuff that I kind of buy that they have a reason to, other than just I want to win the match, which I think is important, right? I think that helps elevate a match. So I wind up really loving this match every time. And the first 5 minutes, I always think, this match is not as good as I thought I remember it being. And then by then I'm like, oh yeah, it is as good as I remember it being. This is really great wrestling. I absolutely love the grappling here. Hiro and Hidaka are meshing catch wrestling and sort of your classic British style and some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it's also fluid. It's so hard to find that. Hidaka is a great technical worker, but I think they mentioned it early in the match that he's often known for his strikes, which might help explain the finish a little bit. I also think it helps explain the psychology of the match, that Hiro, despite being a striker himself, kind of wants to keep it tight because he's the bigger guy and he can outpower him in grappling, and maybe he thinks he has a little bit better chance there, and that I think helps explain and round out why the match flows the way it does. And if you're going to have a great match for match's sake, you got to have real attention to those kinds of details, I think. I won't go into I've talked everybody's ear off about the context and why I think that's really important for this match and why it adds to my overall enjoyment. But the one spot that I really love is Hiro going to a headstand to get out of an ankle lock, which I thought was just
that was clever.
Very clever, very very 1970s British style world sport. And so this match, I always wind up loving it. I always wind up thinking it's really top end stuff. And it didn't disappoint me this time either.
Yeah, this didn't disappoint me either, and I like the context you gave, having a match for match sake. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be just bad, like during the super indie movement, it can get tiring, having great matches for great matches, like the PWG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's those matches aren't, I
those
love
matches aren't bad. It's just when you have so many of them, it's
it's too much.
Yeah, context matters, and it's the difference between a match like this that I have ranked really high and a match that I would think is a legitimate contender for the top 100. There's not a ton of those legitimate contenders for the top 100 that I don't feel have real teeth to them. And this match takes a little long to get to that point to me.
Where would we rate this? I said 4.5.
I did too. I like the story that was told. Like I was saying about chopping the tree down of Ono's legs, and it took a while, but it finally ended up happening at the end. And Ono eventually getting those strikes, those elbows that Ono were throwing, those were bombs. And you could hear him that Ono was dropping those elbows in the back of the head, and it all kind of flowed pretty well and made sense. So 4.5 for me.
I'm gonna give it 4 3/4 by a hair. Just gets over that mark, and some of that's me reading story into the match as opposed to what I'm being told. I think stuff like elbow or Hiro's elbows not putting Hidaka down because his leg's been worked on the whole time, right? Your power comes from your legs.
You get the base, right?
Right. So stuff like that, I read that into the match. I suspect Hiro reads that into the match and Hidaka reads that into the match. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that all those the devil's in the details that are meant to be there, and give it 4 3/4.
I'm going 4.5, just like Danny and Mike. Great British kind of style indie match, and that's definitely up my alley.
Roosh, Negro, Casas from the Anniversario show. 2 out of 3 falls, hair versus hair.
I wish the first 2 falls were a little bit longer than what they were.
But that's every CMLL match.
That's every CMLL match. So, yeah, that's a fair point. Bruce's drop kicks. Woo!
They're mean.
those drop kicks were nothing to mess with. That first one that won the first fall, man, it felt like you could, it was a kind of a little bit of a hesitation to it. And then once it finally landed, boy, it was like the perfect right hand in a boxing match. So like it was that was the thing that stuck out to me the most, along with the story. But yeah, those drop kicks were just devastating.
Something that stuck out to me was just Negro Casas' performance. He's 54 at the time of this match. Dude can still move like he's 30.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, God bless Negro Casas.
God bless him. Just God bless him.
Oh, no, your part, man.
Man, it's timeless. Yeah, I think this is just great storytelling. This is really simple. Your alpha male young guy who's bigger, stronger, faster, beating up an old man who has been at it for a long time and is going to eventually get the best of him until he gets cheated, right? Until he's cheated out of the match. And I think it's just brilliant. It's simple. It's executed so well. I think they played, again, one of the things I've mentioned a couple of these matches, they played to their strengths, and they played to Casas' strengths at the time. And they didn't ask him to do anything he couldn't do. And he executed everything just kind of pitch perfectly in terms of telling the story. I actually kind of, in this particular circumstance, the short first two falls, I can get a little tired of because it can be redundant, but I kind of think of it as telling the broader story of a Rudo and a Technico in the context of the match, right? The Rudo usually gets the first fall, and so that's the Rudo getting one up on the Technico, and then the Technico trying to like having to come from behind and fight back and show fire, and that helps me kind of at least like accept this trope of particularly CMLL matches and these stakes matches. So, and here I thought it worked well. Right? He jumped him from the outside. Of course, Casas is going to take an early fall, and then he gets a kind of cheap one when he outsmarts Rush and his team on the whole. So I thought, yeah, really brilliant stuff. And just again, God bless Negro Casas. It's brilliant.
Yeah, God bless him.
Yep.
God bless him. Greg?
As with a lot of this stuff, I'm going in completely blind. So I just had to kind of pick up through context that this was 2 out of 3 falls and that it was a hair versus hair match. So especially that first fall, I was just like, whoa, is the match over? But as I've said on here before, I'm really big into kind of the presentation around the wrestling, and this was the first kind of big, modern, overly produced thing I think we've, which I loved. I did they say Rush is part of Los Ingobernales here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that, and that was really cool to see. I don't know who the midget was in the entrance or why he was dressed like a horse.
We don't want to explain. I don't really have an explanation for that one.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I do like how Rush attacked Negro Casas before the bell, and the announcer just kept going like nothing happened.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, really.
But man, Rush just looks like a jerk. Like he just looks like a heel. He has a punchable face, but where you don't want to punch him because he's gonna knock you out.
Yeah, perfect.
Like how he flexed on him when he won the first fall. You remember that?
Yeah, you would just like flex and like, yeah, I beat this old man up. Yeah.
He didn't even look at the leg. He just stood a foot over him and just posed for the crowd. Like that was such a heel move. That was absolutely a heel move.
And then, like you guys said, he's obviously bigger, stronger, faster. His drop kicks are incredible. When he lays into Negro, it's just nasty. And I will say that the end, normally I wouldn't like a baby face winning on like a cheap or getting not the end. Sorry, the baby face win here. I normally don't like that being on a like roll up, like a cheap victory, but right. I like the way this was played out. It it was more believable because of the distraction and everything. And being the babyface and being so old, as you guys are pointing out, he kind of needed to get a little more cheap of a victory.
Yeah, a little bit of context for that is Casas often plays a kind of historically has often been a kind of sneaky rudo in a lot of ways. So it's very much in line with his character here, even because he's facing somebody who outmatches him and is more dastardly than he is even. So again, just it made a little bit of sense to me in the moment that he would I'm going to take advantage of this because that's who I am. I'm Negro Casas.
I also like learning these terms like rudo and technico.
Yeah, they don't exactly translate to face and heel. Technico face, rudo heel, but I think for conversation's sake, it's a fine kind of way of thinking of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really even translate within the matches. Like you see their versions of a heel act differently than what we would be a heel, and same with the baby faces. So it's really cool seeing these different styles where it messes with your traditional thinking of a good and bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thinking back on it, I really liked this match. I was like, Rush is such a ass here, and it's like Rush, it's real. I don't know why I was so nitpicky on the match before.
Okay.
Honestly.
So I think the thing about Rush is that he's got to be the most translatable Mexican-born luchador out there right now, right? Like, he just makes sense for American mindsets. I think he's athletic. He has the look. He is a great heel worker. Like, and I mean that heel, not necessarily just rudo. And I think he makes sense. And so I think that's another reason why this match kind of shines and stands out. And it's just, he's really translatable. I could picture him in AEW or WWE. I think he's the Ring of Honor champion right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
I could picture him on a bigger program finding a lot of success.
And I can also totally see how in that stable he works with like Andrade. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like Andrade gives me a similar feel, that just arrogant luchador who it's so easy to hate, but yet you know he's
respect his style.
Yeah, he's a threat. He's not a chicken S heel.
Nope.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rouge comes off as not chicken ass, but sort of like cool, but not an ass, but comes off like an ass at the same time.
Too many modern heels become so cool that you like them, and he just seems like no matter how cool he is, you're always going to hate his guts.
Yeah.
Like MJF. MJF is immediately the guy I think of in that particular category. Like, you want to see him get punched in the face, but he's so cool as a heel. You just can't help but respect it. And MJF is exactly the example I think of when it comes to that kind of heel.
Yeah, it's a good comp.
So, I just generated the matches for next week, and boy, we have some good ones.
Should we do the star ratings for that one first, real quick?
Oh, yes. I bumped it up to 4.25.
That's where I'm at, too. I'm at 4.25.
Same. I have, except for the Hidaka Hero match, I have them all kind of the 4.25 to 4.5. It would probably depend on my mood that day.
I'm going 4.5. This is actually my favorite of the four. Yeah, I was really able to get into this one for some reason. I think it was, again, that modern overproduction to it that really caught my eye.
Nice.
So next time, we have Mitsuharu Misawa versus Toshiaki Kawada from 7/24/1995. All Japan Pro Wrestling. Then we have the Dangerous Alliance. Rick Rude, Steve Austin, Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, and Bobby Eaton in War Games versus Sting Squadron.
Yes.
Okay.
Sting, Ricky Steamboat, and I heard Matt said yes.
Yeah, he was ready. He was ready for that.
Terry Wyndham, Dustin Rhodes, Nikita Koloff. This match is awesome. I already know this match is awesome. Then we have Manami Toyota and Toshio Yamada versus Dynamite Kansai and Mayumi Ozaki. 2 out of 3 falls. Triple WA All Japan Women's. I think that's the Dream Slam match.
Oh, yes, that's so good.
And then we have the G1 final from the first G1. Chono versus Rude.
Yeah, he's stacked.
All right.
That's stacked next week.
That's a good show. That's gonna be a good show next week.
Next week, prepare for takes. We're not watching the WCW match between Chono versus Rude. We're not watching that one.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah, so that War Games match made my first ballot for greatest match ever the first year, and then got bumped off the second year. So I've been meaning to rewatch it. This is a really good excuse for me to go back and give it another chance to get back into it, because man, I love that match. Yeah,
and then the 2 out of 3 falls All Japan Women's Tag from Dream Slam. Holy mackerel!
Yeah, though if you guys haven't seen those, get ready. There's a lot of action.
All right.
And then we have Misawa Kawada just hanging in there. My God.
Yeah,
So
it's a good group.
Yeah, it is.
Good grouping by me.
Good job.
So DJ D Kooks on Twitter, Great Match Generator on Facebook. That's where you can find us.
All right. Twitter.com/BeastMike is where you can find me. And obviously the Sports Lounge page on Facebook. I did my picks for the NFL a little differently. I put up 12 of the 16 because there are 4 AFC ones that feel like playoff games to me. So I'm going to focus on them individually. One of them features my Dolphins. We got the hardest one of the 4. We play the Chiefs.
You're a Dolphins fan?
On Sunday.
I'm a Dolphins fan. I didn't know that.
Dolphins fan too? Oh, word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, give me your thoughts real quick. Dolphins Chiefs. How do we beat the champs?
Well, it's gonna be a 3-pronged effort. Everybody's got to basically play perfect, I think, on defense, offense, and special teams, and a little bit of luck. I have been. I mean, as a Dolphins fan, it's hard for me to believe in nice things.
Yes.
And it's hard for me to believe that this team's for real. But I think they've played up to their competition. They've played above the expectations.
Right.
And so they keep doing that, and they keep surprising me, except for that Denver game. I kind of felt like that was a trap game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see. I'm not going in expecting to win, but I'm also, I'm not necessarily expecting them to just roll over either. That defense loves to feast. So
it's one of the best defenses in the league, and has been magnificent at causing turnovers.
Absolutely.
And now you're facing a team that has been magnificent at preventing them.
Yeah.
I think my biggest key is ball control. Kansas City does not do well against the run.
Okay,
Miami
that's true.
It's starting to run the ball much better over the last couple weeks. And you got Gaskins back, and Washington apparently is coming back to join Patrick Laird.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the big thing for me. Ball control. Can you keep Mahomes off the field? I trust Flores against Kansas City because just the sheer depth on defense. You need a secondary to deal with Kansas City. Miami has one. I trust them against them.
And Xavier Howard is the best cornerback in the league. I'll hear no argument to the contrary.
Facts. Defensive player of the year.
And Tua, if Tua can make like 5 really good passes, I think they could be like probably 2 that I thought that's the 2 I wanted to see.
The bomb to Grant that he dropped, and the one to Parker, right?
Yeah, he also threw another one. I think it was to Parker as well. It was just a little bit before the one everybody's talking about that I thought was excellent. He just kind of rolled out and just hit him on a dime.
Yeah.
Again, just didn't get quite as much hype as that one that he squeezed into that super tight window. But yeah, he's shown flashes. We need a little bit more than just flashes in this one, probably, though.
Yes. Against this team, absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to get to work out on the Dolphins today.
All right. I didn't see that coming. I wasn't ready for that. I'm always ready for that, but I wasn't expecting it. I'm here for it.
I'm a Bears fan, and they suck.
That's Rollins hates football. Every week.
I really hope you guys draft a quarterback next year. I don't want to see Trubisky or Foles as your starting quarterback in 2021.
Yeah, that's brutal.
No, we are doomed to never have a quarterback or an offensive line. But,
you and Pat Rollins both.
Hey, at least we got Allen Robinson, Penn Stater. So
for a couple more weeks, we'll take care of him next year.
Yeah, you can catch me over on Twitter at PSU Optimus, just like the Transformers character, or over on YouTube where I do most of my work with action figures, and that's at Wrestling Optimus. I just dropped my latest video last night, which is my review of AEW Dynamite with the appearance of Shaq.
Oh, yeah, that appearance of Shaq that really... Did you know that Dustin versus 10 got over 1 million viewers in the minute by minute?
That's awesome.
Wow. The average overall was 995,000.
Nice.
So with DVRs and whatnot, you can just call that 1 million viewers.
Oh, yeah.
Dynamite finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can find me at Markout Mountain on Twitter. That's where I'm at on the Twitter machine. Mostly just talking randomly about wrestling that I love.
Yep. And the forum.
Yes, the forum is at, I always forget this. GWEproject.freeforums.net. Yeah, you should always do that plug. You remember the address better than I do. GWEprojects.freeforums.net. If you type in GME projects into your Google, you should find it pretty easily. But yeah, forum's great place to chat about wrestling, wrestlers, matches, so on and so forth.
So, and for next time, we have a stacked show next week. Holy mackerel.
Exciting.
Yep.
So until next time, we will see you later.
This holiday season, your dollar goes further with great deals and low Meijer prices. You can get a delicious cooked spiral sliced ham for 87 cents per pound. Limit 1 ham per customer. And Meijer is now offering free pickup on orders of $50 or more. So we save you time during this busy holiday season. Enjoy the great deals at Meijer. Exclusions apply. Visit Meijer.com to get started.